Another convention of postmodern narrative is the unreliable narrator. Again, this goes back to the idea of the death of the author, as the audience is provoked to question the reliability of the person telling the story. A cinematic example of this feature is Michel Gondry's 2006 film The Science of Sleep. Has anyone seen this film? And if so, can you explain why the protagonist, Stephane, might be considered an unreliable narrator? There are constant cuts between the real world and Stephane's dream world, where he has constructed a television studio out of cardboard. The idea here is that we're inside his head, with two blinds acting as his eyes. So when he opens his eyes in reality, the next shot is him in his dream opening the blinds to achieve the effect of worlds parallel to each other, that one can affect the other. As the narrative progresses, with Stephane constructing his ideals in his dreams, the audience soon become confused and cannot decipher whether they are seeing Stephane's dream or his reality. But this is just the audience falling into the rhythm of Stephane, the unreliable narrator. On numerous occasions, he forgets whether or not he's dreaming, and he ends up doing things that impact on his status in the real world. Eija-Liisa Ahtila uses the device of the unreliable narrator to present stories about individuals suffering from psychotic disorders. Presented on multiple screens, which reveal different perspectives on the unfolding events, her narratives are constantly sliding between subjective and objective reality. Her chosen subject matter lends itself easily to perceptual distortions, as series of images flow seamlessly between reality and illusion and draw the viewer into uncanny and deeply fractured environments. Taylor, the House, is a 3-channel video installation that envelops viewers, mirroring the protagonist's acts of self-confinement. The film opens with the woman driving up to a secluded house in the woods. Through a series of fixed camera angles that recall surveillance camera footage in their passivity and fragmentation, Ahtila describes the interior of the house and its surroundings. As the film progresses, the protagonist hears voices, her awareness of her environment beginning to disintegrate. She describes her experience to the viewer, stating, "Everything is now simultaneous, here, being. Nothing happens before or after. Things don't have causes. Things that occur no longer shed light on the past. Time is random, and spaces have become overlapping. No place is just one anymore." As the woman's perceptions unravel, the images become increasingly dreamlike, eventually creating complete rupture of spatial and temporal boundaries. As the work reaches its conclusion, she is enveloped in the shadow and solitude of her home, and the on-screen tension is made palpable by the increasing darkness of the gallery space. In Gillian Wearing's work, the link between narrator and reality is severed in a different way. Using the confessional, Wearing invites her subjects to reveal or expose their innermost emotions or secrets, but always offers them a shield of some sort. For example, in her 2002 video Trauma, her subjects wear literal masks. Of the shields are written signs expressing an individual's unspeakable thoughts in the 1992 to 1993 series, signs that say what you want them to say and not signs that say what someone else wants you to say. What do you think the purpose of the signs are in this series? The shields become distancing devices, dramatizing the gap between surface perceptions and inner realities. By making literal the social mask, which hides the cauldron of emotions, Wearing's work become metaphors for the uncertainty of all ordinary social encounters. In other contemporary narratives, the conventional flow of the story is disrupted by the fact that the events are being recorded by the artist and the resulting breakdown of barriers between artist and subject. From the late 1970s, Nan Goldin began documenting her social circle made up of artists, poets, musicians, transsexuals, and drag queens. Beginning in 1980, Goldin began to organise her images into a series called The Ballad of Sexual Dependency, which she refers to as the diary I let other people read. And while it is far more coherent than many other artists' narratives, it's still loose and interpretive. Unlike other photographers explored so far, Goldin does not pose her subjects. Instead, she captures them in the most intimate poses, applying makeup before a drag performance, sobbing after a fight with a lover, even making love, sitting on the toilet or shooting up. Goldin also appears in her photographs, and some of the most moving sequences present her struggles with an abusive relationship, her descent into drug addiction, and her recovery at a rehab centre. One wonders, however, about the project's effects on Goldin herself, and how her behaviour may have been altered by her dual role as observer and observed. Another artist that explores this link between photographer and subject is Melissa Spitz. In her series, You Have Nothing to Worry About, Spitz uses photography to document her mother's mental illness and substance abuse. According to Spitz, there was never really a conscious decision of going to photograph my mentally ill mother. It was the easiest way to give me a reason to go home, but still be separated from the situation via the physical act of putting a camera up in front of my face. The photographs are simultaneously upsetting and encouraging, honest and theatrical, loving and hateful. Corresponding to my mother's current bipolar diagnosis, conflating these seemingly binary opposites is the only way to make photographs of her that are remotely valid. By turning the camera toward my mother and my relationship with her, I capture her behaviour as an echo of my own emotional response. The images function like an ongoing conversation. However, Spitz has admitted that her mother's desire for attention may also encourage the erratic behaviour that she is documenting, so that the photographs not only record, but also impact on the narrative being created. The unreliable narrator is also a feature of Spitz's work, as her mother's alcohol abuse often resulted in her having no memory of the portrait sessions having taken place. According to Spitz, as time went on, she admitted that the images scared her, that she didn't recognise herself, or that some of the things in her home, such as burns, holes, and bruises. Few artists have explored the breakdown of barriers between artist and subject to the extent of Sophie Calle. Her process involves gathering data, often covertly, then thrusting herself into provocative and even potentially dangerous case studies. For example, in her 1984 series, The Hotel, Calle took a job as a chambermaid so she could spy on the guests. The resulting works are a combination of photographs and text that document her intrusions. She opened their suitcases, read their mail and diaries, took photographs of their beds and dirty laundry, and invented fanciful scenarios to explain the data she had uncovered. In doing so, Calle plays fast and loose with the line between fact and fiction, not only impacting, but creating the very narratives she is recounting. Artists who make the others active participants in the story of their work see through the logical consequences of Barthes' notion of the authorship of the viewer and the death of the author. Janet Cardiff's audio walks require viewers, although the term is probably not so relevant in this case, to become active participants in the creation of the work. The format of the audio walks is similar to that of an audio guide. You're given a CD player or iPod and told to stand or sit in a particular spot and press play. On the CD, you hear Cardiff's voice giving directions like turn left here or go through this gateway, laid on a background of sounds, the sound of my footsteps, traffic, birds, and miscellaneous sound effects that have been pre-recorded on the same site as they're being heard. This is the important part of the recording. The virtual recorded soundscape has to mimic the real physical one in order to create a new world as a seamless combination of the two. Cardiff's voice gives directions, but also relates thoughts and narrative elements, which instills in the listener a desire to continue and finish the walk. The stories of contemporary artists are extremely diverse in both subject and intent. Like history painters of old, today's artists may take on grand subjects drawn from history and mythology, or they may put a microscope on the intimacies of everyday life. Unlike narratives in traditional art, postmodern storytelling is self-conscious, deliberately incomplete or incoherent, undermining the artist's role as storyteller and instead requiring the viewer to take an active role in its construction.